Hi, welcome to this Corbettmaths video. In this video, we're going to look at the video solutions to the volume of a sphere practice questions. If you need any extra help finding the volume of a sphere, if you go to corbettmaths.com and go to the videos and worksheets page and scroll down to video number 361, there's a dedicated video tutorial there on finding the volume of a sphere. Alternatively, you could scan this QR code. But in this video, we're going to focus on the video solutions to the practice questions, so let's get started. Okay, question number one. So here's question number one. We've got the sphere and it's got a radius of 5 centimeters, and we've been asked to work out the volume of the sphere, and we've been asked to give our answer to one decimal place. Now this is a calculator question, so that's quite nice. So the volume of the sphere is found by 4/3 pi r cubed. Now the radius of the sphere is 5, so that means that the volume will be equal to 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius, which is 5 cubed. Just replacing r, the radius, with 5. And now, because this is a calculator question, we can just type this into our calculator. So we'll just get our calculator and type in 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 5 cubed. And let's see what we get. And that's equal to 500 pi, or 523.59877, and so on. Now we've been asked to give our answer to one decimal place, so to one decimal place this would be 523 point, and then we've got 59, so we're going to round up, so that'll be 0.6 centimeters cubed, and that's it. So that's the volume of that sphere. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 2. Okay, so here we've got another sphere, but this time we've been given the diameter this time. So the diameter of the sphere is 14 centimeters. Now we've been asked to find the volume of sphere, and we've been asked to give our answer to one decimal place. So in terms of the volume, the volume of sphere, the volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius cubed. Now the diameter of this sphere is 14 centimeters, so the radius, which is halfway across, would be 7 centimeters. So it's going to be 7 cubed. And again, it's a calculator question, so we can just type this into our calculator and see what we get. So we're going to type in 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 7 cubed. And when we do that, we get an answer of 1372/3 pi, or 1436.75504, and so on, centimeters cubed. But we've been asked to give our answer to one decimal place. So answer to one decimal place will be 1436 point, and then we've got 75, so we're going to round up, so that'll be 0.8 centimeters cubed. And that's the volume of this sphere. Okay, let's have a look at our next question. This time we haven't been given a diagram, but we've been given this passage, and it says a sphere has a radius of 2 centimeters. So the radius is 2, and we've been asked to calculate the volume of the sphere and to give our answer to one decimal place. So this question is just like the other questions that we've done, apart from it hasn't got a diagram. So the volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. There's going to be 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius of the sphere, which is 2 cubed. And again, it's a calculator question, so that's quite nice. We can just type this into our calculator, and when we do that, we get that's equal to 32/3 pi, or 33.51032.164 centimeters cubed. But we've been asked to give our answer to one decimal place, so to one decimal place this would be 33 point, then we've got 51, so it's just going to be 0.5 centimeters cubed, and that's it. And if you got that, well done. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 4. Now question number 4 is a non-calculator question, so I'm just putting down my calculator, and we've been given a sphere, and the diameter of the sphere is 6 centimeters, so the whole way across this sphere is 6 centimeters. And we've been asked to find the volume of the sphere and to give our answer in terms of pi. So what we're going to do is we're going to write down the formula. The volume is equal to 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius cubed. Now the radius of the sphere, so from the centre to the edge, will be 3 centimeters, half of the diameter. So we've got the volume will be equal to 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius, which is 3 cubed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work this out. Remember, it's a non-calculator question, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cube 3 to begin with. Remember our order of operations, we've got to do any brackets? No. Orders their powers, so we've got to do that power first. 3 cubed, so that's 3 multiplied by 3 cubed is equal to 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, so 3 cubed is equal to 27. So that means the volume will be equal to 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 27, just replacing 3 cubed with 27. Okay, so we've now got 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 27. What we're now going to do is we're going to work out what 4/3 of 27 is. So to find 4/3 of something, we divide by the bottom and times by the top. So we're going to take our 27, we're going to divide it by 3, we're going to get that answer, and then times it by 4. So let's work out 4/3 of 27. So we're going to take 27, we're going to divide by the bottom, so we're going to divide by 3. So 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then we're going to multiply by the numerator, 9 times 4. So we're going to do 9 times 4, that's equal to 36. So 4/3 of 27 will be 36. So we've got that's equal to 36 multiplied by pi. So we've just worked out the 4/3 of 27. Now we've got 36 multiplied by pi. Well, we're just going to put them together. So it's going to be 36 pi, and then we just need to include our units. And because it's centimeters and it's volume, it's going to be centimeters cubed. And that's it. Okay, so in this question, what we done was we wrote down the volume of the sphere was 4/3 pi r cubed. We replaced the radius with 3 because the radius of the sphere is 3. We cubed 3, which is 27, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. We then just worked out 4/3 of that by dividing by the bottom and times by the top, and then we just put it beside the pi. So the answer is 36 pi centimeters cubed, and that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 5. So question number 5 says a solid wooden sphere has got a radius of 5.98 centimeters. And we've been asked to work out an estimate for the volume of the sphere and to give our answer in terms of pi. This question is a non-calculator question, so I've put down my calculator, and we've been asked to estimate the volume of the sphere, so we don't need to work it out exactly. So let's write down what the volume of the sphere is. The volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. So 4/3 pi r cubed, and that's going to be 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius. Now the radius is 5.98 centimeters, but we've been asked to estimate it. So rather than using 5.98, I'm going to use 6. I'm going to use 6 centimeters because I think that would be sensible in this question. So I'm going to do 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 6 cubed. And I've just rounded that 5.98 centimeters to one significant figure, and I've got 6. So that's what I'm going to do in this estimation question. Okay, so we're now going to work this out and give our answer in terms of pi. So I'm going to need to work out the 6 cubed to begin with. So we're going to do 6 cubed, which is 6 multiplied by 6 multiplied by 6. Now 6 times 6 is 36, so that's going to be 36 multiplied by 6. And to work this out, I'm going to use my column multiplication, 36 multiplied by 6. 6 times 6 is 36, so let's put our 6 down and carry out 3. And 6 times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21. So that's going to be 216. So 6 cubed is 216. So we've got 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 216, just replacing 6 cubed with 216. Now we need to work out 4/3 of that, so we're going to work out 4/3 of 216. So we're going to divide by the bottom and times by the top. So let's take the 216 and divide by 3, and I'm going to use the bus shelter method for that. So 216 divided by 3. How many 3's go into 2? 0, remainder 2. How many 3's go into 21? That's 7. And how many 3's go into 6? That's 2. So I've divided by the bottom, now I need to times by the top, so I'm going to take the 72 and I'm going to multiply that by 4. So 72 multiplied by 4, let's see what we get. 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 times 7 is 28, so that's 288. So 4/3 of 216 is 288, and then we've got multiplied by pi, so 288 multiplied by pi. And remember, we want it in terms of pi, so we're just going to put them together, so it's going to be 288 pi. And that's it. And let's remember our units, it's in centimeters, so the volume will be centimeters cubed. So our estimate for the volume of the sphere would be 288 pi centimeters cubed. Now, if we were asked if that was an overestimate or an underestimate, that would be an overestimate because we've rounded up in this case. We rounded up to 6 centimeters. So this is going to be bigger than the actual volume of the sphere, but it's our estimate. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 6. Okay, question number 6, we've been given this sphere and we've been told the radius of the sphere is x, and we've been told the volume of the sphere is 500 centimeters cubed, and we need to work out the radius of the sphere. Okay, and we've been asked to give our answer to 2 decimal places. Okay, so in terms of this, let's write down the formula. The volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. So that's the volume of the sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed. Now the volume in this case is 500, so it's going to be 500 is equal to 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius, and the radius in this case is x, so it's going to be x cubed. Okay, so now we've got an equation, we just need to solve this. If we solve this equation, we can find out what x is, and then that will be our answer. That will be the radius of the sphere. Okay, so to solve this equation, we want to get the x on its own. So let's get rid of this 4/3 to begin with. So let's divide both sides by 4/3. So let's divide the left-hand side by 4/3, and let's divide the right-hand side by 4/3. So 500 divided by 4/3, I'm just going to do my calculator. 500 divided by 4/3 is equal to 375. That's quite nice. And that's equal to, and on the right hand side, we've divided by 4/3 to get rid of the multiply by 4/3, so we're just left with pi multiplied by x cubed. Now we want to get rid of this multiplied by pi, so let's divide the left hand side by pi and let's divide the right hand side by pi. So we're going to do 375 divided by pi, and that's equal to 119.3662 and so on. I'm just going to leave that on my calculator display, and that's equal to, and we've divided by pi to get rid of the multiply by pi, so we're just going to be left with x cubed. Okay, so we've now got this. Now, one thing I just want to point out at this stage is we could have, at this point, rather than dividing by 4/3 and then dividing by pi, we could have just divided both sides by 4/3 pi. So we could have divided the left-hand side by 4/3 pi and the right-hand side by 4/3 pi, and that would bring us straight down to this stage here. Okay, now we've got x cubed. We don't want this cubed here, so we're now going to cube root both sides. So we're going to cube root the left-hand side and cube root the right-hand side. So we're going to work out the cube root of our 119.3662 and so on. And that's on my calculator display already, so that's great. And that would be equal to, and the cube root of x cubed would just be x. So we now need to work this out. So on my calculator, I'm just going to press the cube root button and then press answer, because I've already got this in my answer. And that gives me an answer of x equals 4.92372 5 and so on. Now we want to give our answer to 2 decimal places, so that's going to be equal to, x is going to be equal to 4.9, and then we've got 2 3, so we're not going to round up, so it's going to be 4.92, and the units will be centimeters, and that's it. So x, the radius of the sphere, is 4.92 centimeters. And just to recap, what we done was we just wrote down the volume of the sphere, the formula for it. We replaced the volume with 500 and the radius with x, and then we just solved that equation. We found out what x was, and then that's our answer. We rounded the 2 decimal places. Okay, let's look at question number 7. Okay, so question number 7, we've got the sphere, and the diameter of the sphere is y, and we've been told the volume of the sphere is 61,600 millimeters cubed. And we've been asked to work out the diameter of the sphere, y. Okay, so in terms of this question, well, it's a calculator question, so that's quite nice. So let's write down the formula. The volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. And we're going to replace the volume with our 61,600, and that's equal to 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius cubed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to solve this equation and find out what r is, which would be the radius. And then what we'll do is once we find the radius, we'll double it to find out what the diameter is. So let's solve this equation. Now we've looked at this previously. We could divide both sides by 4/3 and then divide both sides by pi. That would work. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to divide the left-hand side by 4/3 pi. I'm going to divide the right-hand side by 4/3 pi, and let's see what we get. So we're going to do 61,600 divided by 4/3 pi. Now whenever I type that into my calculator, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the 61,600 and then I'm going to press divided by, and then I'm just going to open up my brackets and type in 4/3 pi, and then I'm going to close brackets, and then whenever I press equals, I get that's equal to 14,705.91674. And then the right hand side, I've divided by 4/3 pi to get rid of the 4/3 pi, so I just leave me with r cubed, the radius cubed. Now we don't want this cubed, so we're going to cube root both sides. So we're going to cube root the left hand side, which is the cube root of 14,705.91674, and that'll be equal to r. And then to work this out, I just need to press the cube root button and then press answer, because that's already on my calculator display. And whenever I press equals, I get the radius is equal to 24.49988 and so on. That's the radius. We want the diameter of the sphere, so we're now going to multiply that by 2. So we're going to do 24.49988 and so on. That's on my calculator display. And then I'm just going to type multiply by 2 and then press equals. And whenever I do that, I get that multiplied by 2. And I get that's equal to 48.9997687. And that's in millimeters. And let's just round that. I'm going to round that to the nearest millimeter. So that's going to be 49 millimeters. So I've got the diameter of the sphere to be 49 millimeters. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 8. Okay, so question number 8, it says the volume of the sphere is 4,500 pi centimeters cubed, and we've been asked to work out the radius of the sphere. Okay, so in this question, it's a calculator question. Now, initially, whenever I looked at this, I thought, well, if this is 4,500 pi, could we do this as a non-calculator question? But whenever I looked at it, the numbers are quite tricky, and we'll see that in a second. So the volume of the sphere is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. Now we know the volume is equal to 4,500 pi, so let's replace the volume with 4,500 pi, and that'll be equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. Now we want to find the radius of the sphere, so we just need to solve this equation and find r. So let's solve this equation. So now my first step I'm going to do is at this point is I'm going to divide both sides of this equation by pi. So I'm going to divide the left hand side by pi and the right hand side by pi, and that'll give me 4,500 is equal to 4/3 r cubed, just dividing both sides by pi. So we've now got the 4,500 is equal to 4/3 r cubed. Now, if this was a non-calculator question, what I would do is I'd multiply both sides by 3, and I would then get something equals 4r cubed, and then I'd divide both sides by 4 to get that something equals r cubed. But because this is a calculator question, I'm going to divide both sides by 4/3. So I'm going to divide by 4/3 and divide by 4/3. So whenever we divide 4,500 by 4/3, we get that's equal to 3,375. And the right hand side, we're dividing by the 4/3 to get rid of the times by 4/3, so we'll just be left with r cubed. So we've got the radius cubed is equal to 3,375. Now, if this was a non-calculator question, we would then just cube root, but because this is a bit of a tricky number, what we're going to do is on our calculator, we're going to work out the cube root of 3,375, and when we press equals, that's equal to 15. So the radius is equal to 15, and that's it. Okay, so question number 9, we've been given this hemisphere, so half a sphere, and we've been asked to calculate the volume of the hemisphere. Now, in terms of finding the volume of the hemisphere, we just need to find the volume of the whole sphere and then just divide by 2. Now, the volume of sphere is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. Now, some people learn the formula for the volume of a hemisphere, that's 2/3 pi r cubed, but what I tend to do is I tend to just work out the volume of the whole sphere and then divide by 2. So it's really up to you whether you want to learn the volume of a hemisphere being 2/3 pi r cubed, or whether, like me, you just want to work out the volume of the whole sphere, which is 4/3 pi r cubed, and then just half it at the end. So let's work out the volume of the whole sphere. The volume will be equal to 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius of the whole sphere, which is 11, cubed. So let's work that out and see what we get. And so calculator questions, we can just type it in one go. 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 11 cubed. And when we do that, we get that's equal to 5,324 over 3 pi, or 5,575.279763 centimeters cubed. So that's the volume of the whole sphere, but this is a hemisphere, it's half of a sphere. So we now just need to divide that by 2. So we take our 5,575.279 and so on, and divide by 2, that's equal to, and I've already got that on my calculator display, so I can just press divided by 2 is equal to 2,662 over 3 pi, or 2,787.639881 centimeters cubed. And that's the volume of the hemisphere. And if we were asked to give that to so many decimal places, let's just round that to 2 decimal places. That'll be 2,787.64 centimeters cubed. And that's it. And if you got that, well done. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 10. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 10. So question number 10, we've been given a quarter of a sphere, so a quarter of a whole sphere, and we're told that O is the center of the sphere. So this is the center of the sphere, and we're told that AB is equal to 20 centimeters. So that means the diameter of the sphere is equal to 20 centimeters. I've been asked to work out the volume of the shape and to give our answer to 2 significant figures. So we want to find the volume of the shape. So to find the volume of the shape, because it's a quarter of a sphere, I'm going to work out the volume of the whole sphere and then just divide it by 4. So the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. So we're going to do 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius of the whole sphere. Now this is the center of the sphere O, so that means that the radius would be 10. It's half of the diameter, so half of 20 is 10, so 10 cubed. So we now just want to work this out and see what we get. And it's a calculator question, so that's quite nice. And when we work that out, we get that's equal to 4,000 over 3 pi, or 4,188.790205 centimeters cubed. So that's the volume of the whole sphere. But this is a quarter of a sphere. So if we want to find the volume of the shape, we just need to divide by 4. So let's take our 4,188.79 and so on, and divide by 4 and see what we get. So when we divide that by 4, we get an answer of 1,000 over 3 pi, or 1,047.197551 and so on centimeters cubed. So that's the volume of that shape. Now we've been asked to give our answer to 2 significant figures. So now if we round this to 2 significant figures, that's going to be 2 digits followed by zeros. So this would be 1,000 to 2 significant figures. So 1,000 centimeters cubed. It wouldn't be 1,100 because with the 4 we're not going to round up, we're going to have to round down. So it's going to be 1,000 centimeters cubed with 2 significant figures, and that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 11. So question number 11, we've been given a shape. It says a container is made from a cylinder and a hemisphere. So we've got the cylinder and the hemisphere on top. And the question says the height of this container, the height of the whole container is 20 centimeters. The diameter of the cylinder is 4 centimeters. And the question says work out the volume of the container. So we want to find the volume of the shape. And it's a composite shape, so that means we've got 2 shapes that have been put together. We've got the cylinder and this hemisphere. So let's find the volume of the cylinder to begin with. So the volume of a cylinder is going to be pi r squared multiplied by the height. So remember, to find the volume of a cylinder, you find the area of the circle and then just multiply by the height or the length of it. So the volume of the cylinder, let's write that down, cylinder, will be the volume is equal to pi r squared multiplied by h. So that's the area of the circle multiplied by how tall the cylinder is. So in terms of the cylinder, let's have a look at the cylinder a minute. We've got the diameter of the cylinder. The diameter is 4 centimeters. So that means the radius halfway across. so halfway across the cylinder will be 2 centimeters. So we've got the radius is 2. The height, now in terms of the whole container has got a height of 20 centimeters. Now we want the height of just the cylinder, so just this part here. So we want this height here, from here to here. Now if we have a look at this hemisphere, we know the radius of the circle is equal to 2 centimeters. Now that means that the radius of the hemisphere is equal to 2, so that means that this would also be equal to 2 centimeters from here to here. So that means that from here down to here, the height of the cylinder would be 20 take away 2. And 20 take away 2 is equal to 18 centimeters. So if this part has got a height of 18 centimeters and this part's got a height of 2 centimeters, the whole container would have a height of 20 centimeters. So that's right. So the height of the cylinder is 18 centimeters. So the volume of the cylinder would be pi multiplied by the radius of the cylinder, which is 2, so 2 squared, multiplied by the height of the cylinder, which is 18. And now we just need to work this out. So let's do pi multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 18. And it's a calculator question, so that's quite nice. So pi multiplied by 2 squared multiplied by 18 is equal to 72 pi, or 226.194 and so on centimeters cubed. So that's the volume of the cylinder, 72 pi, or that. Now let's find the volume of the hemisphere. So in terms of the hemisphere, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the volume of the whole sphere, and then I'm going to divide by 2. So the volume of a sphere is 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius cubed. Now the radius of the whole sphere would be 2 centimeters, from the center to the edge would be 2 centimeters, so that's going to be 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 2 cubed. So we now just need to work this out. So we're going to work out on our calculator 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 2 cubed, and that's equal to 32/3 pi, or 33.5103216 centimeters cubed. So we've now found the volume of the whole sphere. We now need to divide by 2, because remember we want to find the volume of the hemisphere, so we need to divide this by 2. So 33.51032 and so on divided by 2 is equal to 16/3 pi, or 16.7551682 centimeters cubed. So we've now got the volume of the cylinder and we've got the volume of the hemisphere. We can just add them together. So we can add our 226.194 and so on, and our 16.75516 and so on, and let's see what we get. And when we do that, we get an answer of 232/3 pi, or, as a decimal number, 242.9498 and so on centimeters cubed. And in terms of the question, did it ask us to give it so many decimal places? No, it didn't. So I'm just going to round this to 2 decimal places. That'll be 242.95 centimeters cubed. And that's the volume of that shape. Okay, let's have a look at our next question. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 12. So question number 12, we've got the solid metal cube with a side length of 12 centimeters. And Kieran's going to melt this metal cube, and he uses the metal, the molten metal, to make solid metal spheres. And they've got radiuses, or radii, of 2 centimeters. And we've been asked to work out how many spheres can Kieran make. Okay, so what we're going to need to do in this question is we need to find the volume of this cube, because that'll tell us the volume of metal. So in other words, whenever we melt it down, how much metal is there in centimeters cubed. And then what we can do is we can find the volume of the sphere, and then divide the total volume of metal by the volume of the sphere to find out how many spheres he can make. Now obviously if there's a decimal number, he can't round up, he can just make that many number of spheres. So let's have a look at it and see what we get. So let's find the volume of this cube to begin with. So the volume of a cube, the volume is equal to the length multiplied by the width multiplied by the height, or 12 cubed in this case. So 12 cubed is equal to 1,728 centimeters cubed. So that's the volume of the cube. So that's how much metal there is. Now let's find the volume of the little sphere and find out the volume of that. So the volume of a sphere is 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius cubed. So in terms of the volume of this sphere, we're going to do 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius of it, which is 2, so 2 cubed. And then if we work this out in our calculator, we'll get an answer of 32/3 pi, or 33.51032 and so on centimeters cubed. So we've now found the volume of the cube and the volume of the sphere. So this tells us how much metal there is. So this is how much metal there is, and it's going to be poured into a tray where you've got these little holes for spheres that are going to fill up with the metal, and let's figure out how many he can fill up. So if we take the total volume of metal, this 1,728, and divide it by the volume of one of the spheres, we can find out how many spheres he can make. So let's do that. So let's take 1,728 and let's divide that by 33.51032 and so on, and see what we get. So on my calculator, 1,728 divided by answer is equal to 51.566201 and so on. So he can make 51.566201 and so on spheres with the metal. Now obviously if he says how many spheres can he make, well he can't make 52, he can make 51 complete spheres. So the answer here will be 51, and that's it. Okay, so question number 13, we've got Evelyn has built a new garden pond. So she's got this new garden pond, so I'm guessing the ground is here somewhere. So this is the ground and this is her pond. So she's got this pond and it's a hemisphere with a diameter of 150 centimeters. And she fills the pond at a rate of 0.25 litres per second. So she's obviously got a hose and it's an empty pond. It's a new garden pond, so it's empty. And she's pouring in water at a rate of 0.25 litres per second. So in 4 seconds, a litre will go into the pond and so on. And the question says, how long will it take Evelyn to fill the pond? Okay, so let's find the volume of the pond to begin with. So let's find the volume of this hemisphere. So let's find the volume of the whole sphere. So 4/3 pi r cubed. So that's the volume of a whole sphere. So it's going to be 4/3 multiplied by pi, multiplied by the radius of the sphere. So the whole sphere, the radius will be 75 centimeters, half of 150. So 150 divided by 2 is equal to 75. So that means the radius of the whole sphere would be 75 centimeters. So that's going to be multiplied by 75 cubed. So let's work this out. So 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 75 cubed would be equal to 1,776,145.868 centimeters cubed. So that would be the volume of the whole sphere. Now we want the volume of this pond, the hemisphere, so we're going to need to divide by 2. So 1,776,145.868 divided by 2 is equal to, that's equal to 281,250 pi, or 883,572.9338 centimeters cubed. So that's the volume of this hemisphere. Now, she's filling it at a rate of 0.25 litres per second. Now, 1 litre is equal to 1,000 centimeters cubed. So that means that 0.25 litres would be equal to 250 centimeters cubed. So just multiply 0.25 by 1,000 gives us 250 centimeters cubed. So that means that every single second 250 centimeters cubed worth of water is pouring into this pond. And the question is, how long will it take Evelyn to fill the pond? So if we just divide the volume of the pond by 250, that'll tell us how many seconds it'll take Evelyn to fill the pond. So let's do that. So let's take the 883,572.9338 and so on, and divide it by 250, and that's equal to 1,125 pi, or 3,534.291735 seconds. Okay, so if now worked out that it'll take 3,534.29 and so on seconds to fill the pond, let's divide this by 60 to get it into minutes, just because that might make a little bit more sense to me. So if I divide by 60, I get that's equal to 75 over 4 pi, or 58.90486225 minutes. So that's fantastic. That means it's going to take 58 and let's just round this to one decimal place, 58.9 minutes to one decimal place. So it's going to take Evelyn almost 59 minutes to fill the pond, 58.9 minutes. And that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 14. So question number 14, we've been given this solid glass paperweight. So this is a solid glass paperweight, and the paperweight's got a diameter of 10 centimeters. So the diameter of the base of the paperweight is 10 centimeters. And the paperweight is a hemisphere with a diameter of 10 centimeters. That's what we've been told. And the density of the glass is 2.5 grams per centimeter cubed. That means that every centimeter cubed of glass, of this glass, has got a mass of 2.5 grams. And we've been asked to calculate the mass of the paperweight. So we want to work out the mass of this paperweight. So to find the mass of the paperweight, if we find its volume in centimeters cubed, we can just multiply by 2.5, and that'll give us its mass in grams, because every single centimeter cubed has got a mass of 2.5 grams. So let's find the volume of this hemisphere to begin with. So the volume of the whole sphere would be 4/3 pi r cubed. So it's going to be 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius, which would be 5 cubed. So let's work that out and see what we get. And that's equal to 500 over 3 pi, or 523.5987756 centimetres cubed. So that's the volume of the whole sphere. We want just the volume of this paperweight, which is a hemisphere, so we now need to divide by 2. So 523.59 and so on divided by 2 is equal to 250 over 3 pi, or 261.7993878 centimetres cubed. So we now know the volume of this glass paperweight is 261.799 and so on centimetres cubed. Now every single centimetre cube has got a mass of 2.5 grams. So if we multiply the volume by the density, we'll find the mass. So the mass is equal to the volume multiplied by the density, or the density multiplied by the volume. So the volume is 261.78993 and so on. And we're going to multiply that by the density, which is 2.5. So if we multiply the volume by 2.5, we get that's equal to 625 over 3 pi, or 654.498 and so on grams. And let's just round that. Let's round that to one decimal place. That'll be 654.5 grams to one decimal place. So that's the mass of the paperweight, 654.5 grams. And that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 15. So question number 15, we've got 3 spheres. So we've got these 3 spheres, and they've got a radius of 4 centimetres. So the radius of each one, so the distance from the edge to the centre, is 4 centimetres. And they just fit inside of a tube. So we've got this tube, and these 3 spheres just fit inside of that tube. And the tube's a cylinder. And we've been asked to calculate the percentage of the tube that is not filled. So in this question, our approach is going to be, we're going to find the volume of the tube, so the volume of that cylinder. We'll then find the combined volume of the 3 spheres. So we'll find the volume of that sphere, and that sphere, and then add them up to find the combined volume of those spheres. We'll then take that away from the volume of the tube, so the volume of the cylinder, to see what's left. So that'll be the volume that's not filled. And then we'll write that as a percentage, so the percentage of the tube. So we'll convert it as a fraction and then convert that to a percentage. So let's find the volume of each of the spheres to begin with. So each sphere, so the volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. So that's the volume of one of the spheres. So if we do 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius, which is 4 cubed. So let's do that. 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 4 cubed. And when we work that out, we get that's equal to 256 over 3 pi, or 268.0825731 centimetres cubed. So that's the volume of one of the spheres. Now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that by 3 to find the combined volume of all 3 spheres. So 268.0825 and so on, multiplied by 3. And when we multiply that by 3, we get an answer of 256 pi, or 804.247 and so on. And actually in this case, I might actually write it in terms of pi, just because it might help me whenever I'm writing it as a percentage. So the volume of those 3 spheres altogether is 256 pi centimetres cubed. Okay, so we'll find the volume of the 3 spheres. Now let's find the volume of the tube. So that tube is a cylinder. So the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h, the area of the circle multiplied by the height. So if we have a look at the area of the circle, well, the radius of the circle is 4, so that's going to be pi multiplied by 4 squared. That's the area of the circle, pi times 4 squared. That'll be the area of that circle on the end of the cylinder, multiplied by the height. So in terms of finding the height of this cylinder, the height of this tube, let's consider these 3 spheres. If the radius of the sphere is 4 centimetres, that means the diameter the whole way across would be 8 centimetres. So that means from the top to the bottom of the sphere would be 8 centimetres. And for this sphere would also be 8 centimetres. And for this sphere would also be 8 centimetres. So that means if we wanted to find the height of the whole cylinder, we just need to do 8 plus 8 plus 8. And 8 plus 8 plus 8 is 24. So the whole height of the cylinder, this whole height here, would be 24 centimetres. So that means that we're going to do pi multiplied by 4 squared multiplied by 24. And when we work this out in our calculator, we get that's equal to 384 pi centimetres cubed. So that's the volume of the whole cylinder. Now we could actually write out in full as 1206.3715 and so on centimetres cubed. Now in terms of this question, I'm actually going to use this exact value just so I'm not having to write out the whole decimal number. Okay, so in terms of this question, we've been asked to work out the percentage of the tube that's not filled. We've got the volume of the whole tube, 384 pi. We've got the volume of the tube that is filled with the cylinders, 256 pi. Well, if we take those away, if we take the 256 pi away from the 384 pi, that'll tell us the volume of the tube that's not filled. So let's do that. 384 pi subtract 256 pi is equal to 128 pi. So that means the volume of this tube that is not filled is 128 pi centimeters cubed. Or as a decimal number, that's equal to 402.12338 and so on centimeters cubed. Now we've been asked to calculate the percentage of the tube that's not filled. Now in terms of the volume of the tube that's not filled, that's the 128 pi. And in terms of the whole volume of the tube, that's 384 pi. So if we write that as a fraction, we can then convert that into a decimal, which would be equal to 0.333 and so on. And then if we multiply that by 100, we get that's equal to 33.33 and so on %, or 33 1/3 percent. So the volume of that tube that's not filled is 33 1/3, and that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our next question. So question number 16. Question number 16, we've been given a cylinder and a sphere, and it's a non-calculator question, so I'm putting down the calculator. And it says the volume of the cylinder to the volume of the sphere is 5:3. So the ratio of the volume of the cylinder to the volume of the sphere is 5:3. And we've been asked to calculate the height of the cylinder, x. Okay, so in terms of this question, it's a non-calculator question. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the volume of the sphere to begin with, because I know the radius of the sphere is 3, and I can find the volume of that in terms of pi. Then I can use the ratio to find the volume of the cylinder, and then once I know the volume of the cylinder, we can find the height of the cylinder, x. Okay, so let's start off with the sphere. The volume of the sphere, the volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. So that'd be 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius, which is 3 cubed. 3 cubes equal to 27, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So we've got 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 27. And now we just need to work out what 4/3 of 27 is. So let's take our 27 and divide by the bottom. 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then times by the top. So 9 times 4 is 36. And then we've got times pi. That'll be 36 pi centimeters cubed. So that means the volume of the sphere is 36 pi centimeters cubed. Now we want to find out the volume of the cylinder. Now the ratio of the volume of the cylinder to the volume of the sphere is 5:3. So if I take this volume of the sphere, the 36 pi, and I divide it by its number in the ratio, which is 3. So if I take 36 pi and then I divide that by 3, its number in the ratio, that would be equal to 12 pi. And then if I multiply by the other number in the ratio, the volume of a cylinder's number in the ratio, which is 5, if I do 12 pi multiplied by 5, that's equal to 60 pi centimeters cubed. So we've now got the volume of the cylinder. It's 60 pi centimeters cubed. So let's write that down. The volume of the cylinder is pi r squared h, the area of the circle times the height. So the area of the circle times the height will be the volume. So let's just write down the radius. The radius will be 2 centimeters, because the diameter of the cylinder is 4 centimeters, so the radius is 2. And the volume is equal to 60 pi, so we'd have 60 pi is equal to pi multiplied by the radius squared, so it's going to be 2 squared, multiplied by the height of the cylinder, which is x. Okay, 2 squared, using our order of operations to work out the squared first of all. 2 squared is 4, so we've got 60 pi is equal to pi multiplied by 4 multiplied by x. Now I'm going to divide both sides of the equation by pi, so if I divide by pi and divide by pi, I'll just be left with 60 is equal to 4 multiplied by x. And then if I divide by 4 and divide by 4, I get that 15 is equal to x. So x is equal to 15 centimeters. The height of that cylinder is 15 centimeters, and that's it. Okay, let's have a look at our last question, question number 17. So question number 17, we've been given a sphere and a cone, and they've got the same volume. And we've been asked to write an expression for h, the height of the cone, in terms of y. And this is a non-calculator question, so again, I'm just putting down my calculator. Okay, so to begin with in this question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the volume of the sphere to begin with. So the volume of a sphere is equal to 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius cubed. So that's going to be 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius, which is 3y cubed. Now 3y cubed, thinking of our order of operations, we've got to cube this. 3 cubed is 27 and y cubed is y cubed. So it's going to be 27y cubed. If you think about it, 3y multiplied by 3y multiplied by 3y would be equal to 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, and y times y times y would be y cubed. So this part is y cubed. So we've got the volume is equal to 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 27y cubed. So this is what we've got so far. I'm actually just going to bring this down a bit. Okay, so I've just moved this down a bit here. Okay, now we want to find the volume of the sphere. So we've got 4/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by 27y cubed. Well, let's work out what 4/3 of 27 is. So to find 4/3 of 27, I'll take the 27, I'll divide it by 3, because divide by the bottom. 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then I'll multiply by the top. 9 times 4 is equal to 36. So that's 36. So we've got the volume will be equal to 36, and then we've got our pi, and then we've got our y cubed. So that's the volume of the sphere. Now if we go back to the question, it says they've got the same volume. So now let's find the volume of the cone. So the volume of a cone, the volume is equal to 1/3 pi r squared h. So to find the volume of a cone, you do 1/3 the area of the base, the area of that circle on the bottom, so 1/3 of the area of the circle, multiplied by the height, the perpendicular height, the height going straight from the bottom to the top of the cone. Okay, so what we're now going to do is we're now going to substitute our values. So the volume of this cone would be equal to, the volume is equal to 1/3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius of the base squared, so it's going to be 3y squared multiplied by h, the height of the cone. So when we work that out, what do we get? Well, we've got 1/3 multiplied by pi, and then we're going to work out 3y squared. Well, 3y times 3y would be 9y squared, so multiplied by 9y squared multiplied by h, the height of the cone. Okay, now the volume will be equal to 1/3 of 9 is equal to 3, so it's going to be 3 pi y squared h. So we've now got an expression for the volume of the sphere, and we've now got an expression for the volume of the cone. And we know that they're equal to each other because we're told in the question the sphere and the cone have got the same volume. So let's put them equal to each other. So it'll be 36 pi y cubed is equal to 3 pi y squared h. So we put the two volumes equal to each other. Now we want to find an expression for h, so we want to make h a subject. So in terms of these equations, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So I'm going to divide by 3 and divide by 3. On the left hand side, we'll get 12 pi y cubed is equal to pi y squared h, just dividing both sides by 3. 36 divided by 3 is 12, and 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we're just going to write pi instead. Now let's divide both sides by pi, so we divide by pi and divide by pi, we're going to be left with 12y cubed, and on the right hand side we'll be left with y squared h. Now we want to make h a subject, so we want to get rid of this y squared. Now y can't be equal to 0, so we can divide both sides by y squared and divide both sides by y squared. So dividing the left hand side by y squared will just leave us with 12y. On the right hand side, y squared divided by y squared will be 1, and so we're just left with h. So h is equal to 12y, and that's it. And that's it, we've found an expression for h in terms of y. It's 12y. And that's it. So in this video, we've looked at the video solutions to the volume of a sphere practice questions on Corbettmaths. I really hope you found this video useful. And if you have found it useful, please like it and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you need any extra help on the volume of a sphere, if you go to video 361 on Corbettmaths, there's a video tutorial there on the volume of a sphere. But again, in this video, I've gone through the video solutions to the practice questions. I really hope you found it useful, and all the best. Cheers. Bye.